Chapman Show. I'm Patrick Chapman, and here we go. So happy Easter, first of all. Yeah, it's Easter morning, beautiful morning here, blue sky, not a cloud in the sky, really nice day. So happy Easter. The first thing I want to talk about today is about a year ago, plus or minus 1 month or two, I went in the kitchen and I opened a carton of milk, and the milk always has a plastic cap, just like a bottle cap, plastic cap on the top, and it was stuck to the carton, like to the little round thing, to the hole. So the cap is stuck to the hole by two little plastic pieces, I couldn't just take it off. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't know if it's like defective, like if this is like a broken one or something, but okay, I can kind of pour the milk, no problem. And I thought, well, maybe this particular company, decided to change their kind of containers. They got a different system for the cap now, and it sticks to the thing. So good for them, whatever, it's their money, their business. I just need the milk. Well, that was the milk that day, and then the next day, or maybe 2 days later, I opened another bottle, like a water bottle or maybe a juice bottle, and the same thing. And then I realized, okay, this was not the choice of that company. This is some EU regulation. And this is apple juice, empty now, but I'll show you what I mean exactly. If you're in America, Europeans know about this, but it's like stuck. Now, if I go to drink from that, I'm fighting with the thing. If you want to drink straight out of the bottle, or if you want to pour, you're like pouring all down the thing. You got to turn it the right way, and like, what is the point? And you might think, okay, it's not that big a problem, but it wasn't a problem already. There was no problem, and now we do this to what are we solving with that? What does that help? And what this is a perfect representation of is busybody bureaucrats in Brussels. That's what it is. That is the picture of busybody bureaucrats in Brussels trying to dictate our lives and tell us what color socks to wear in the morning. They're not really going to tell us what color socks to wear, but they wish they could. They wish they could. And now we got to have these stupid, and I just rip them off eventually. And it's easy to rip off, but it's a little bit of extra work that I don't really need in my life. And there, now it's off. Oops, and now I dropped it. I guess that's the problem they were solving. No more dropping the bottle cap, because we're going to make it stick to the bottle. And the thing is that it's got to be a regulation, because all the companies do it now, and they all started the same week. I noticed it, about a year ago. And it means they were forced to by some regulation. Well, that's a cost. If you're running the business, you got to change the way you make the thing, or you got to buy a different kind. That's a cost. I don't know how much it costs. I don't know how big it costs. But the bureaucrats, they don't care about the cost. They're going to make you do something without counting the cost for you. And it'd be one thing if they paid for it, then there'd be a lot less regulation. I'm trying to find that bottle cap. I will see where it went. I'll find it later. But just stay. They want to get in every little part of our lives. They want to regulate the bottle caps. Stop saving the world. Don't, everybody loves the moon. Astronauts like to go to the moon. Poets like to write about the moon. Babies love looking up at the moon, and their first word, moon, right after mama, moon, we all love the moon, and it's dead. It's a dead rock, and so when the Earth is a dead rock, that's fine. It's fine. Just don't try to save everything forever. Anyway, okay, let me get off my little soapbox and go to what I want to talk about today, and that's Proverbs. I love Proverbs. And during Peace Corps training, we were handed out a list of 10 or so Polish proverbs with the English translations, and I've lost that list now. I don't have it anymore, but I remember some of them, and some are more interesting or clever in their Polish version than in the English version, and vice versa. Sometimes the English is better, or it's a little bit funny, or just clever. Um, and so some examples, like in English, we say, don't count your chickens before they hatch, right? And everybody knows what that means. And it's a good one. It makes sense. Like, yeah, I got a basket full of eggs, speaking of Easter, but they're not chickens yet. And don't, you know, or actually Woody Allen put it a good way. I think it was Woody Allen. When he said, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans for the future. And I love that. That's exactly the same thing as don't count your chickens before they hatch. And you never know what's going to happen. Okay. So yeah, and in Polish they say nie dziel skóry na niedźwiedziu, which means, translated directly, would be, well, we would say don't count your chickens before they hatch, but that's not exactly what it means. Word for word, it's more like don't divide the skin on the bear. In other words, so in this idea, you're not farming chickens, but you're hunting a bear. And so you don't want to decide, oh, I'll take this part of the bear skin and you take that part of the bear skin. We haven't caught the bear yet. First, let's get the bear. So that's a good one. And we got too many cooks spoil the broth, and they got gdzie kucharek sześć, tam nie ma co jeść, which means where there are 6 cooks, there's nothing to eat, which is a good one. We say the early bird gets the worm, and they say kto rano wstaje, temu Pan Bóg daje. Kto rano wstaje, temu Pan Bóg daje. Which means God gives to him who gets up early. So anyway, good Proverbs. And there are some Proverbs I don't like, talking about the English ones, because they aren't quite true. One of them that I don't like is first impressions are lasting impressions. There is a truth in it, kinda, and yeah, you want to make a good first impression, but what you learn in life is that what I prefer to say is first impressions are false impressions. Because if your first impression of a person is a good one, like really positive, like here's a guy and he's just he looks smart, well dressed, good looking, funny, I like this guy. Well, then the second time you meet him, or the third or fourth, as you get to know him, your judgment is going to drop a little bit. It's going to go down if you start out too high, and vice versa. So if you see this guy and he's just a slob and he doesn't know how to talk and he's making stupid jokes or trying to impress or whatever, and you're just like, this guy, what a loser. And then you get to know him, and then he's like, oh no, he's actually has something to say, and he's all right. So first impressions are false impressions. You always recalculate your judgment of a person later, and it becomes more accurate as you go. Another one that I forgot to write down here in my notes, but I want to make sure I don't forget now that it's in my head, is, what was it? Crime doesn't pay is one. I want to talk about that one. Shoot, there was another one. It'll come to me later, hopefully. Let's talk about crime doesn't pay. Crime doesn't pay. Everybody has the wrong meaning of that. They think it means don't be a criminal. Because it won't pay to steal something. No, that'll pay. It'll pay you very well as the criminal. If you steal a bicycle, let's use that as the example for our crime. Bike theft, especially since my son's bike was stolen last year, and I've had bikes stolen, and it's a common crime. So what it means is it's not that crime doesn't pay because the criminal's going to get caught and he'll end up having to serve time in jail or pay for the bikes that he's stolen, or that bike that you steal has no real value to you and you're not going to get any money for it. No, you're going to get your money. You just sell the bike or do whatever you do with it. Keep it, ride it, whatever you do. It pays for the criminal. It doesn't pay for society. And it means everybody now has to buy a bike lock. And so you buy that bike lock, and let's say it only costs $5, Okay, so you can afford it. So you get a bike, get the bike lock, and we all get one, but it's a big cost when we look at all of those $5. It might not be $5, it might be $10, you know. I don't know how much a bike lock costs anymore. But, so, and then, you know, you call in the police and the time you take to report the bike being stolen, and then, you know, so if bikes are going to be stolen, that's a cost to society, and that goes for all the crimes. Now we got to protect against it, and we got to have cameras, and we got to have locks, and we got to, you know, try to find the criminals, and then prosecute them, and then put them in jail, and that's a cost. It's just so crime doesn't pay, because if there is crime, we pay for it as a society. That's what it means. It doesn't mean don't be a criminal because you're not going to have any benefit from it. No, you might actually, but in the big way. But the big thing about crime, though, which is that what do you want to you want to have that kind of society where everybody's a criminal? Because who are your friends going to be if you're a criminal? But I don't need to explain that. Anybody who's listening to this is probably not a criminal, and I'm not going to convince anybody anyway. Like, oh, thanks for telling me that. Now I won't steal a bike. All right, let's go to this. Yeah, and so you're talking about this, whether the bike lock costs $5 or $10. It makes a difference whether it's 5 or 10. For one thing, that's double. And they both might sound cheap, but double is double. And I've been in these situations before where somebody will try to get me to go along with a plan, like to convince me to do something or to be part of the group or join the program or something, because it really doesn't cost that much. And this is a bad way to motivate people when you try to tell them that it's when you understate the cost. So if the bike lock costs $10, don't say it costs $5. No, better to say it costs $15, and then let me be surprised when it only costs $10. Don't motivate me with the $5, and then I find out I got to pay $10, and now that's twice what you told me. And you're thinking, but what, 5 or 10? It's kind of the same. Don't do that to me. And I've been in that situation. I remember in Aragon one time, we were going to go to a party, and somebody said, well, let's just take a taxi. Yeah, it'll be like two zlotys each, you know. And it wasn't 2 zlotys each. It was, because that would be great if it were, but it was like double that or more. And like, don't get me to get in your taxi because you're telling me it's going to cost this much when really it's going to cost more. Do the opposite. Tell me it's going to cost more, and then let me be surprised the other way. And the same thing is true with trying to motivate somebody by telling him that it's easy. No, this is really easy. Watch, I'll show you. It's just easy. That is absolutely the opposite of motivating. It doesn't encourage you to try. It's discouraging when you tell somebody that something is easy. Although you would think, it's like counterintuitive. You would think that if I tell you it's easy, you're going to say, oh yeah, maybe it's easy, I'll try it. It's more motivating when you say, this is kind of difficult and I don't know if you can do it. I'll try to help you if I can, but it's a tough thing to do, and I don't know, I can't blame you if it doesn't work, put it that way. So, give it a try if you want to, but I recommend don't even try, just because it's a tough thing. Whatever it is, whatever it is, don't motivate anybody by saying that it's easy, because it's absolutely discouraging. Because then what if he fails, at whatever the task is? Now you told me it was easy and I can't do it. Well, that means I'm stupid. and I feel stupid, and now I think you think I'm stupid, and I think everybody thinks I'm stupid. So don't tell me it's easy, tell me it's difficult, and then I'll feel like I achieved something if I can get it done. Okay. Now I remember the other proverb I wanted to say. It comes from sports, because I'm a big sports guy. And I don't remember how they said it. It's the best defense is a good offense, or the best offense is a good defense. It's one of those. It could be vice versa or both. I don't know. But it's stupid. It's stupid. The best defense is a good offense, or the other way. No, don't say that. There are probably others that don't make sense, but those are the ones I wanted to talk about now. But the proverb I wanted to get to is this one. because this has real good meaning, and I don't think there's any Polish let me say that again. I don't think there's any Polish equivalent, that's what I'm trying to say, that I've ever heard of. And I always have to explain it when I say it in English, because they look at me like, what are you talking about? And the proverb is this in English. It's, blood is thicker than water. So I always have to explain this one, because nobody gets it immediately. Or like the other day, I was talking about this in a lesson, and I was talking about my family, and actually my wife's family, and my point was that I'm water. When it comes to her family, I'm water, because I'm not blood, right? She's blood. And when you're water, you're a little bit less affected by things in the family, like the little family arguments or whatever. It's like, I don't go back to birth with these people. I go back, well, now 20 years or more. But I don't have that whole childhood thing that my wife has with them. But I have it with my family, with whom I'm blood. So I'm water when it comes to my wife's family, and vice versa. So, and this has an important meaning to an American. I never know what the Brits think. I don't know if they use this too, because sometimes they use the same things in the same meaning, and sometimes they don't even know it exists, or sometimes it has a different meaning for them. So I won't talk about them, but for the Americans, this is an important meaning, and it's the exact opposite of what a Polak would think. Because when a Polak thinks blood is thicker than water, he thinks, yes, and that is how it is, and that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it should be, and like, my family is my family. My blood, we stick together. And if my kid gets into a fight with another kid, my kid is right, and I defend him, I protect him, and your kid can go to hell. I don't care. Too bad, but I protect my kid. Or if I have a business and I need a worker, then I hire my brother because he's looking for a job, so I hire my brother, and that's fair because that's my brother. And whereas the Americans would say that's absolutely wrong, and the reason we say that blood is thicker than water is that it's not fair. You're supposed to go against that natural reality, because blood is thicker than water, and you're supposed to fight against that. Like when we say that, we say it in the meaning that that's not fair. Like, yeah, I applied for the job, but the guy gave it to his brother because blood is thicker than water, and everybody understands that that's not fair. So the Americans have a completely different mindset. Like, we know that's not fair. The Polak is like, yeah, that's fair, and what are you going to do? What do you... So it's definitely different as far as I can see. Yeah, and I got into a big discussion about that actually in one lesson years ago. 20 years ago, with a lady, and she stuck to her guns, and I stuck to mine. And I was like, right. Another one. This is a Polish one. It's a great one. Polak potrafi. And this is a great one. It has two meanings. And so the basic meaning is that a Polak can survive, or a Polak will get it right, or get it done, or fix the problem, right? Polak potrafi. He knows what to do, right? He can do it. So, and it has two meanings, kind of the positive meaning and the negative meaning. And the positive meaning is that he can... a Polak isn't going to die in a situation. There's not going to be any tragedy. He can manage. So he can, if something breaks, he can fix it, or at least fix it well enough to get you to tomorrow. To get you, if your car breaks, he'll get it home. But I always think of this as like fishing with dynamite. That's when I hear this Polak potrafi, I picture a Polak with a stick of dynamite looking over a lake, and just trying to kill all the fish. Because it also means, like, if your TV breaks, your television set, he'll open it up and, like, start fixing it. And then he'll blow up the whole grid for the whole neighborhood. And that's the second meaning of Polak Potrafi. It's like, yeah, he'll fix it because he doesn't really know what he's doing, and he'll blow up the neighborhood or ruin the grid. All right, so Polak Potrafi. So it's got the positive and the negative sense. And the positive is good and the negative is bad. That's why the positive and negative. Well, let's keep going here with my next topic, and that's people used to write letters. And when I was a little boy, I started writing letters at quite a young age. And the first person I wrote to was my Uncle Milo, who lived in Alabama. And I was so happy one day when he wrote back to me. And his first time writing to me was actually just a little added paragraph to a letter he had written to my dad. So he wrote to my papa, and at the end of the letter he said, "Hello there, Patrick," and then so there's a little paragraph, And that was like, wow, I got some attention, That was cool, and then I wrote to him, and he wrote back to me a real letter, and so that was my first, pen pal, let's say, was my Uncle Milo, and it just felt great to get a letter in the mail. And then when I moved down to Louisiana, I've said this before, I wrote a couple letters to some old schoolmates from up in Elk Grove Village, but that didn't last. I mean, when you're I was too young to get into the real writing rhythm, let's say. And so then just too much time goes by between letters, and then you just stop. You just never get back to it. So, and then with my cousin Michael, we used to exchange letters like all the time. Once we met finally on one of those family reunion trips, and then we became just fast friends and kept in touch. And so we had a great exchange of letters over the years. Anyway, and then other people. Then I went off to college and kept in touch with friends and the family and everything. And so I was always a good letter writer, and I like it. I liked it as a kind of a art form, like writing. I just like writing. And I've got boxes of letters here, right at my feet. I'm looking at them. I must have thousands of letters that people have written to me over the years, and I saved them, and now I'm getting rid of them because I told myself that at 60, which I became last year, I would start going through them and try to read each one and then throw it away because it's just clutter. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to read it. It's not interesting, even to me, most of them. So what's anybody else going to think? But if there are some good ones, like especially from my father, he was a great letter writer, and some of them are just prose. I mean, they're prose in the high sense of the word. And I kind of have it in the back of my mind to collect all the good ones together, if there are enough of them, and they might be of any interest to anybody else, and just put them in a little book and, title it Capital Letters. You see what I did there? But then email came out, and it wasn't such a sudden thing. It was more gradual, actually, than you might think, especially given the way technology has been changing since email started, because now the changes are like lightning, and the email change was fast, but it wasn't that fast. I mean, I was still writing letters, for years after other people had started writing emails, and then there was a mix, some letters, some emails. But even with the emails at first, you still had to write. I mean, the first thing, you would have to go home or go to your office if you're at work, but probably go home because you're supposed to be working at work. Turn on the computer, and that takes 10 minutes for it to come on while you're doing something else. And then you sit down and you compose a paragraph, and then a second paragraph, and then maybe a third paragraph, at least. So you're actually writing. And then that all changed with the smartphone. And I could see, because I still love writing, and I could sit down and, let's say, write an email, 3 paragraphs, let's say, and that takes some time and some thought and some energy, and it's fun. I enjoy doing it. But what's discouraging is that I know somebody at a red light gets it on his smartphone, reads it quickly before the light changes, and goes, oh, and then sends back like a smiley face, or some emoji, or a thumbs up, And I just wrote 3 paragraphs or 4, and I get a thumbs up. Jesus, life is a little too fast, I think. But that's just the difference in technology now. We got the smartphones. You get the email immediately. You can read it pretty quickly. You don't have to sit down at a keyboard and compose a whole letter. So, but because of that, I think we're losing the skill of writing, and I don't want to overplay it, but I think people just don't write as much as they used to, and I don't want to be the old guy who's complaining about the young generation, but it might be something that we're losing, and maybe that doesn't matter. Usually that's the way it goes. The old people complain, and the young people are like, out of the way. I have things to do. And then the culture continues. For better or worse, we go forward, and you can't always hang on to everything from the past. But some things we don't lose, like the vinyl records have come back now. I guess I don't have any, and I don't want any. But some people think it's a better way, and so that technology has survived, I guess. Whereas it looked dead, or it had looked dead, people were talking about losing reading, like kids weren't reading anymore, and then Harry Potter came along, and boom, everybody's reading, because they love the book. That's all it took. It didn't take like hammering it into them, or forcing them to sit down and open their books. No, nobody wants that. Just write a good book, make it fun. And I'm not as big a fan of Harry Potter as everybody else is. It just kind of came a little too... I'm not a reader, first of all. I mean, I kind of am now. But as a kid, like the little boy inside of me does not want to read. But, and so when Harry Potter hit, I was already a little bit older. And so I didn't get hooked on it. But I do remember there was one... Back when I used to teach, especially in the college, or like back in the Peace Corps days, we would have these training sessions sometimes. And one time, somebody came, these outside teachers or specialists would come in and kind of teach us some new teaching methods or some ideas we could use in the classroom. And it's good, it was pretty helpful, make you think. You could just dismiss it if you didn't want to use it, or you could use it. And so it was never a bad thing. And so we're in one of these training sessions at the college here in Leibnitsa one time, and I think it was a lady presenter, and she had 1 page of a book. And what I noticed in the writing, first of all, it was well written. It's just like whoever wrote it knew how to write. And the person used the past perfect tense, and that's something that you'll never see anymore in a newspaper. Like if you read the Chicago Tribune, which I used to, or any newspaper, I think nowadays, they just won't use the past perfect. They'll just go simple past. So simple past, and then going back, they'll go still simple past. And I'm like, that doesn't quite make sense. It's lazy English, and it's not good English. And you're supposed to be a newspaper. I'm like, why are you letting that die and actively killing it when that's kind of an important part of grammar? Not the most important part. We can do without it, but we can do without, our left foot too if we have to. But why? Why not use it? Okay. Anyway, this whole thing about writing kind of comes up because I got an email today, which you don't even get those anymore. Remember, email was such a revolution. And now, who writes emails anymore? So I got one today from my old friend Helene Stone. Hello, Helene, if you're out there. And she was in my Peace Corps group back in the day. And going through these letters, I came upon one from her from it has to be at least 26 years ago, I think, at least 26, about. And so that's a long time. over a quarter century. And I just said to myself, because this was now some months ago that I even did this. So I'm looking at the letter, and it's got her email address on it. So I thought, I wonder if this is still a valid email address, because you never know. I mean, I've always had, I guess I have a couple of them now, but I've always had the same email address. So I write to her an email, and she wrote back eventually. And so I wrote back again, and just this morning she wrote back finally. I got another one from her. So the gap had been quite long between them. But Helene really helped me out once when, I'll just tell the story as fast as I can. I had been working in Dobiegniew for Peace Corps when I was a volunteer and teaching in the Lyceum there, or Lyceum, I guess we would call it in English, which is high school. So teaching in the high school. And I wanted to stay in Poland after Peace Corps. You know, I could have gone home, but I didn't know what I would do at home. And I liked it here, and I'd been learning Polish for 3 years. I'm like, what am I going to do with that if I go back to America? You know, that's a lot of investment, so I can use the Polish here to some extent. So, you know, although I don't really need Polish, I can get by in English, especially now. Nowadays, a lot of people speak English. You can get by. So, okay. But I wanted to stay in Poland, so I looked for jobs, and I realized I could find a job anywhere, pretty much. And in the meantime, in that third year that I was in Dobiegniew, a couple of my friends from my group had come back to Poland to work at a company in Dębica, which is the tire company there, the TC Dębica, which had been bought out by Goodyear, if I remember right. I think it had already been bought by then, or maybe they bought it the next year, but I think it had already been bought. In any case, so these couple of friends of mine are working down there in Dębica, and I went down to visit them. And on the visit, I had an interview for the job of becoming a teacher the next year. And it was one of those interviews where the night before the interview, I had met the woman, the boss, you know, and because we were all at a party. And I didn't do anything stupid at the party, but she got drunk. So I don't even remember her doing or saying anything stupid. It's just that I think she was a little embarrassed. And because of her embarrassment, I didn't get the job. That's how I felt. And I knew it in the interview, because sometimes you walk into an interview and you know right away. You can just feel it. Like if it's a big no, but you got to kind of go through the motions. Or if it's a big yes, but you still got to go through the motions. And sometimes you know you got the job, and sometimes you know you didn't. And I knew I didn't when she told me, you know, she's asking me, we're chit-chatting, you know, and it's going well, let's say. I mean, I'm answering what she's asking. But I didn't really feel if it was going right or not. I couldn't quite get a grip on what she thought of me. And she knows that my friends work there, and they want me to work there, and I want to work there. But I can feel like she's not as warm to the idea as they are. And she's the one in charge. And so she throws me what she thinks is a curveball. And I hit it. You know, let's say I stroked a signal. But just the fact that she threw it made me know that was a signal to me that she's trying to trick me. And she doesn't want me. She's looking for an excuse not to hire me. So the curve she threw me was, she asked me what a gerund was. And I know what a gerund is. So I told her, and I was right. And then she's like, I didn't get him, but very nice smiley face and all that nicey. But I didn't get the job. So, okay. I go back, finish my work in Dobiegniew. In the meantime, I got a job in Bielsko-Biała, and I'm not sure now if that was from Helene also. It might have been. So I went down to work at a college, teacher training college in Bielsko-Biała, and I worked there for a year. And it was a great year. Loved it. Wonderful time. Made some friends. Beautiful city. And just a lot of fun. And good work. Good experience. So, okay, I worked in Bielsko-Biała for a year. Well, Helene is working now in that that other lady's job in Devica. And so, yeah, I'm pretty sure she was going to work in that Bielsko-Biała too. Didn't take the job, offered it to me. I took that job. She went to Devica. She was now the boss. So Helene hired me the next year. And then Helene went back home to California, and I started teaching in Devica. And that was a great situation for me. So, and I ended up staying there for 3 years, and the rest is history. But, so good old Helene, and I'll be writing to her again, maybe later today when we come back from our Easter celebration on the other side of the city. Okay. Whew. All right. I think I'm done. Good. Okay, I will be done. So, happy Easter, and we'll talk again soon. Goodbye.